Welcome to our conversation about insurance. With me, I've got Richard Chitty, who's the claims manager for Admiral Marine Insurance, and we're going to have a chat about ensuring a smooth claims experience. Now, Richard, obviously, this is the part of insurance that people hope they'll never get to, but if the worst does happen, they're going to be contacting someone like yourself. What advice would you initially give a client who's on the phone to you saying, an accident's happened, for example?
Yes, the sort of advice I would give will depend on whether he's phoning up on the water with a yacht broadside into his side, or whether it's the fact is he's back in port and is therefore reporting the fact that he had an accident on the water. What we would generally expect is for the client to let us know as soon as possible. That's not only so that it's fresh in the mind of the insured, but also that if there's any mitigating action we need to take, that we can take it quickly to make sure that the damage doesn't get worse to the boat.
So that might be, for example, arranging a boatyard to get an emergency lift out where it's taking on water, for example. Is that the kind of thing you're thinking about?
Yes, definitely. We wouldn't want the boat to sink, and therefore we would expect any person we insured to do their best to minimise the damage to the boat. So if it is taking on water, we would expect that they would get the boat lifted or put in emergency pumps to make sure that it doesn't sink.
What about if me as the client, what about if I have to take a tow or get pulled off a reef? We're then into the issues of salvage and towage, aren't we? Do I need to speak to my insurer first? What's the sort of situation from an Admiral perspective?
It depends on the sort of urgency of the situation and danger that you're in. But if you are about to be blown onto a lee shore and you've lost engine power and your sails aren't working, and someone is coming past, we would, it is express duty of that other yachtsman to come to your aid. And the vast majority of the time, fellow yachtsmen will very happily give you a tow to get you out of danger. There is obviously, when someone does that, they're obviously being put out of their way slightly, and we would normally expect, hopefully, a bottle of whiskey or something would be suitable to thank the person who's helped you. But in some circumstances, we've had an abandoned boat which was towed 400 or 500 miles for us. In which case we were therefore very grateful for that, and were able to offer some salvage costs associated with that.
And a salvage claim would be covered under an insurance policy?
Salvage claims are. What you would generally do is that if salvage claims normally come about when you've got a professional company who are coming to your aid. In which case you really should agree at the time that there will be salvage. And there is the Lloyd's open form which the salvage company might throw at you to ask you to sign, but it's basically just lists the details of who you are, the circumstances you're in, the date, and that you agree to be taken under tow. And then we would expect later on that you would get a claim from the salvage company, which you would pass straight to your insurer to handle for you as any third-party claim against you.
So let's talk about the general claims process. Can you just talk us through what the process is from, we'll assume the incident has happened and been reported, what happens next?
What we're very keen to do is to get photographic evidence, now everybody's got mobile phones or iPads or something like that, is that do record as many photographs possible as the damage. We might not need them all, but it's good to get an understanding, particularly if you are in the Caribbean and it's hard to get a surveyor to you, to actually, record the damage so that we know the extent of it. And also we can then make some judgments back here in the UK as to what the next course of action should be. We've got access to a lot of surveyors who are more than willing to look at a photograph of some damage, say, yep, there, that's fine to carry on, or no, you mustn't use that boom. Put up your trysail and carry on with that.
If I'm in the Caribbean, would you expect me to complete a claim form, or does it all transact via email these days?
What we would expect you to do is to complete a claim form. And the purpose of that is it does record all the details which we as your insurers would require, so that we've got all the details of the incident, when it happened, date, time, who the third party was, if there's a third party involved with it, so the insurers, what damage you believe has been done to it. And you can, most insurance companies have those forms on their website, so you can download a form there, or once you've notified us of a claim, we would send you a claim form to fill out.
Let's look at the perspective of a cruiser who's in the Caribbean and had some damage to their boat that has to be worked on in a boatyard. Who handles the process of getting the boat repaired? Is it the client that has to do that, or do you as the insurance company do that?
The client is normally responsible for getting the repairs done, partly because they're actually local on the ground. We as insurers, depending on the extent of the damage, which is why photographs are so important, would either turn around and say, let the local yard provide an estimate for the repairs, or if it's complex damage, it's more than one thing, and we're concerned about it, we would find a surveyor who we would then send around to you to inspect and to write a damage report for us. Now that report is very useful because it normally specifies what work needs to be done to do the repairs, and can be used by the repair yards to provide estimates for the repairs.
So would you say it's important not to sanction a repair until the insurance company has approved the work?
We would wish 9 times out of 10 to authorise the repairs ourselves. In some circumstances, a client has phoned up and said, oh, by the way, I damaged my props coming across from Cowes last week. She's out of the water, I've got some new propellers ordered, and here's the bill. Which is not how we like to hear it, because what we normally would expect, and most insurers would want, is that we would get a competitive quote from a second respectable yard, to make sure that the yard that the owner has got his boat in at the time is not charging extortionate rates.
And what about the actual process of payment? Is it typical that the client would pay out and then claim back, or would the insurance company pay direct to the yard doing the work?
A lot depends on the finances involved. If it's a fairly minor repair work, we would normally expect the client to pay. Where you might need to order parts from Europe or from America, we would be quite willing to pay those costs, pay the supplier direct for it, but would expect the client to pay the local repair yard, and then submit the receipts to us, paid in invoices, and we would settle up.
Any other advice you want to give prospective clients for the claims process, or what to do in an emergency?
I think the most important thing from our point of view is that we need to investigate to make sure of the circumstances of the claim, to make sure that actually it is covered under the policy, but also so that when an estimate comes through, we know whether it is justifiable and it is related to the incident itself.
Are there some common things that are not covered? I'm thinking, for example, wear and tear or replacing old equipment with new. Do you want to just talk through that sort of process?
There is the wear and tear clause, and you know, if you've been using sails and they are 15 years old and they get damaged, some insurers will turn around and say, actually, you're not covered for that. That's wear and tear. Normally, mechanical failure, if you've got problems with your engine, your gearbox, your clutch, unless it is related to an actual incident, i.e. you fouled something, as a result it damaged the gearbox, that would be down as sort of wear and tear.
So, for example, if the boat gets a rope on the propeller that causes the gearbox to be damaged, that is an insurance claim. But if the gearbox fails because the client forgot to fill up with oil, that's not an insurance claim.
Yes, that is correct. So where there has been an insurable event has occurred, a peril, you have fouled an underwater obstacle, then that is insured. But if it's the fact that you had failed to do your maintenance, then it's not. But each insurer has their own exclusions, which you need to read through on the policy.
And if not sure at time of taking out your policy, you should talk through with your broker what those exclusions actually mean.
Yes, you should. It's quite important to do that. And here at Admiral, Dave and Chriselle would explain the policy to you.
Are there any areas of an insurance claim, maybe trip hazards, pitfalls that people commonly misunderstand that you'd like to warn people about in advance?
Yes, one of the most common pitfalls is where the insured thinks that they are insured and will carry on sailing or motoring knowing that there is damage to their boat. And as a consequence of doing that, they cause more damage to the boat itself. And it's an implied duty on the insured that you are to act as if you are uninsured.
Can you just explain that point a little bit more, what it actually means, act as though you're uninsured?
What it means is that if you've got a heavy vibration on your propeller because you've hit something, is that you should assume that you want to minimise the cost of damage, minimise the damage, therefore minimise the cost of repair, and therefore put yourself into the nearest port or stop motoring, put yourselves up and sail into the nearest port to get the boat lifted, so we can get the repairs done, rather than carrying on motoring, and as a result of that cause further damage to the engine mounts or the engine or the gearbox or the shaft.
The general rule is you should always act to reduce the damage, therefore the loss.
Yes, you should. In some circumstances, if the emergency situation arises and you can't, then put those details in the claim form, and if there is consequential damage because you've had to take some action to actually save the yacht and further damage to the yacht, then that would be covered. But if there's an alternative, you've decided you did want to put into this island, but you want to carry on another 200 miles motoring with a damaged engine or something, we would find that very difficult to justify a claim for any consequential damage beyond the initial damage.
Is there a typical length of time a claim would take to process, or does it very much depend on where the boat is, in terms of if I'm a cruiser and let's say I'm in the Caribbean and I've hit something, I've got to get the boat lifted, checked out. How many weeks, months am I looking at to get this process sorted?
Well, what we tend to do is discuss with the client exactly what their plans are. And if the damage is such that they've got a bent pulpit or something like that, it doesn't actually affect their basic cruise, but they do need to get it sorted at some stage. They might prefer to actually carry on sailing with that damage there, but get it booked into a yard where they're going to be leaving the boat over the winter to get the repairs done over the winter months, or in the Caribbean over the summer months. So we do find that some claims have been, we're notified of the claim, we've put the claim form in, we've got some estimates of what the costs are, but actually the actual repairs have been delayed by 6 months or even longer. And COVID-19 hasn't helped, where we had some claims which were decided to put the repairs back until the winter and then can't get the repairs done, and the boats are now only just getting repaired a whole year later.
I think that's an important point to make about insurance, is it doesn't cover you for the disruption to your cruising plan. If you have to fly home because the boat's in a boatyard, you're not necessarily going to get covered for those sort of costs, are you?
Generally speaking, no. I mean, there are certain circumstances where we would cover you for a flight back out to go and pick up the boat to bring it back if that was the case. So if you were on a passage somewhere and the boat got damaged, I think our policy allows some travel to go back out, fly back out to pick the boat up to complete your journey.
Because there's this sort of grey area between where my boat insurance policy ends and where my personal medical or travel insurance kicks in. Any advice on where that line might fall for people who aren't familiar with it?
I think one of the general rules is that you can't claim on your travel insurance as well as on your yacht insurance for the same expense. We would normally expect, if it's a sort of travel related issue, that your travel insurance would pay out. And technically the travel agents, the travel insurers could get hold of us and say, but you also cover it, we'll split the cost 50-50. But I haven't personally come across that yet.
So basically we're looking at the costs of related to the incident that happened to the boat, or the accident, the consequences of you being the owner of that boat is effectively what we're looking at, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Well, Dave, Andrew from Admiral Marine, and Richard, Chitty, thank you very much for your contributions. It's been really good to have you with us today, and really appreciate the advice you've been able to share with people. So thank you very much, and hopefully people will benefit and come and have a chat with you at maybe one of our seminars. I know you regularly attend our seminars, so you can, the advice we've been talking about today, you can give in person to people if they come and see you